All right, Scott McNamara is the district attorney in Oneida County. And Scott, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. How are you today?
Were you a big Wonder Woman fan?
I was not a big fan of Wonder Woman. Bionic Man.
Gee, that was, Steve Austin. That was, I think that, if you think about our age group, if you think of, one TV show, you can do Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island and MASH and all those things that showed up in syndication. But in terms of a show in prime time, that $6 Million Man was huge.
Yes.
That was big. All right. Okay. So we want to be fair here, and I know there's a lot of talk with this Chief Brooks stuff going on and the mayor. Joe Marino was in yesterday and made a statement we thought would it'd be important for us to fact check, and we want to go right to the source. So let's start with Manansky on what was said.
Right. So Joe Marino had said that the mayor had been accused in the past or had been told stop coming to crime scenes and tampering with evidence, basically. And I don't know if this was a real-life situation or if he was saying, for example, if you showed up to a crime scene where a shooting had occurred and you're picking up bullets, like, hey, look what I found. Obviously, there's fingerprints and things that need to be taken off that bullet before you start passing it around.
So did your office have to send a cease and desist?
I did send a letter to the mayor a while ago. I don't even remember. I can tell you when it was around. I don't remember what year it was, but it was around the time that baby Levon was found in the river. Within days of that, I know that. And basically what the letter did was I told the mayor that he needs to take the lights off his police car and that he's not allowed inside the tape at crime scenes. I had been trying to negotiate with him through the chief of police and through police officers to get rid of the lights off his car, and also, more importantly,
can you explain the lights on the car? You're talking about like police red lights?
Yeah, he basically had an undercover police car. He had a car that had police lights on it, and what he was doing was going to crime scenes using the lights. So, in other words, we had people complaining that he was driving at a very high rate of speed going to crime scenes. He has no legal authority to have lights on his car. Now, he argues that point, but the law is pretty clear. He's not an emergency responder. He's not a paramedic. He's not an EMT, and he's not a police officer. So he doesn't have any legal right to have lights on his car, no more than you do or I do. I can't have lights on my car. I'm not an emergency responder. So the problem I had with that was...
Chief Brooks, however, could have a light on his car.
Absolutely. He's chief of police. The chief of police, he definitely could have lights on his car.
Thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah. But what was happening, what I was concerned about is I had just been sued for basically not doing something. And although that lawsuit was dismissed, it did raise a concern with me when I heard about this is, if I was to be sued again, let's say, for example, he was in a car accident, a fatal car accident, and then guess what? People are going to ask me, what did you know, when did you know it, and why didn't you do anything? So basically what I was trying to do was just to get him to take them off and not make a big deal of it, and that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, he refused. And then what happened was there was the fatal shooting at the, I forget what pool it is, over in West Utica on Boilermaker weekend.
Oh, right, yep.
And what happened was I had been talking to the chief of police. I'd also been talking to the forensic unit, and we were constantly getting reports where it would show that the mayor had went into the crime scene. Now, I wasn't getting reports that he was picking anything up or touching anything, but the bottom line is he was walking through the crime scene, and nobody should be inside of that tape. I don't go inside of the tape unless the police authorize me. So I don't just show up and say, hey, let me see the deceased or let me see anything.
Yeah.
And I don't want people in there because it makes it more difficult for us to prosecute the case when you have people in there because, if something gets moved, if something does get touched, it's contaminated and it's a problem. So I was home watching the news, and what do I see? I see the mayor go inside the tape at the shooting, at the pool, and it was a shooting that involved one of his police officers.
Right,
it was a Utica police officer shot, and although he didn't kill the guy, he shot the guy. The guy ultimately killed himself. But once again, that's the worst crime scene he could possibly be in
Right.
because it's ripe for claims of contamination. So I had started to, that was on the middle of July. I had tried to talk. I had tried to get him to come to my office to discuss it. He refused to come to my office, said if I want to speak to him, I can come to City Hall. And ultimately, after I couldn't get him to come to my office, I couldn't get him to listen to, at that point I was talking to Mark Williams, so I don't know what Mark Williams was doing, but Mark Williams was basically, was unable to get him to come to my office or to agree to stop going.
Wow.
So I sent him a letter.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I actually had a ticket written out for him. I had one of my investigators write a ticket. We had support and depositions and everything, and we were going to ticket him for having the lights on his car, and that happened to be the next day. The day it was going to be delivered was the day we found the baby in the river, so that's how I remember when it took place.
Right.
So ultimately, when I was standing at the river, when the divers were there, the chief walked up to me and said he took his lights off the car. So I said, okay, good.
There's a lot going on with the mayor right now, and it seems these type of situations are peppered around through the last few years, and that is, listen, you want to talk to me, you come to my office. That type of, and then this Chief Brooks thing going on. Is there a rough relationship between the two of you, or is it just over this issue?
To be honest with you, I never disliked Palmieri, to be honest with you, until this issue. And I wouldn't even say I dislike him now. He's just, if I get summoned to somebody's office, I kind of look at it like this. I mean, if somebody summoned me to their office and I thought that they had a right to do that, I would go,
right,
no matter what my rank was. But, like if a judge summons me to my office, I'm not going to say, if you want to talk to me, you come to my office, because I would think the judge is a little bit higher up in the in the political food chain than I am. And like in this situation, I didn't do anything wrong. I was trying to resolve this without a letter. I was trying to resolve this. To be honest with you, had he come to my office, I would have said to him, hey, Robbie, you can't do this, and these are the reasons why.
In a gentleman fashion is what you were trying to do this, in a way.
Absolutely, totally. Yeah. But he does have a tendency to become very headstrong, and it wasn't what I was looking for. I was just looking for him to come and explain to him, my position. For example, the lights on the car. If you get into this is what I was said to him. If you get into a car accident, okay, and I know you have lights on your car, that creates an issue for me, the district attorney's office, and Oneida County. We could all be sued, especially if we knew that we had prior knowledge that you were driving at high rates of speed to accidents, to crime scenes, because you don't have a right to do it, and there's no need for you to do it. I mean, what are you going to do when you get there? Okay, you get there first. Good.
Yeah.
I was going to try to explain that to him. And with the crime scene, especially with that shooting, you have a Utica police officer. And that shooting, to be honest with you, that police officer's never come back to work.
Right.
So I'm sure I'm not positive what kind of litigation, but I'm sure there's things going on. And once again, who shot who, where bullets are, and I've been at crime scenes even when we try to keep them pristine, where things get moved or things get, especially shell casings. Someone will stop on one because they don't see them or something like that. So it's just it was something that I really wasn't trying to cause a problem. And to be honest with you, I mean, him and I aren't friends, but I never considered us enemies.
Right.
But it's one of those things where I wouldn't tell him how to do his job, and I was just trying to tell him in my job, this is a problem.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem to have a crime scene with civilians, and that's what he is. Now, he insists, because he's the Commissioner of Public Safety, that somehow or another, he took that title too, that gives him authority to do these. It doesn't. A Commissioner of Public Safety is not a sworn police officer.
Do you have an opinion based as the DA, an opinion on the two positions? Should they be separate, or having the mayor be the public safety commissioner? Is that kosher in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's better when they have a public safety commissioner. Like, for instance, a few years ago, Rome, under the prior administration, the Commissioner of Public Safety was actually a retired New York State trooper. That brings a lot to the table.
Right.
So when they put the right person in the job, it can bring a lot to the table, and also what it does is it helps relations between the DA's office and the police oftentimes, because one of the things we do butt heads sometimes over certain things. And if you have somebody in that position that's not political, totally political in nature, they can explain, hey, listen, this isn't political to the DA. This is professional. This is why they don't want this, or whatever the case might be.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but to the point on the lights again, if a public safety commissioner was a retired police officer, was a retired fire captain or something like that, would that be different, them having lights on their car? Public safety commissioner, former emergency responder.
Good question.
Versus a civilian?
I would feel better with that. I'll tell you what my concern is with the lights on a car. And it purely comes from a public safety situation. Police officers are taught as part of their training on how to drive at high rates of speed. They actually have what's called EVOC training, emergency vehicle operation. Civilians aren't. So there's no training the mayor had no training on how to respond, and and that training is very important. So if you have somebody that's a retired police officer, they are used to driving at high rates of speed, and assuming they're a 20-year career, you have somebody, I would feel a little bit more comfortable from the public safety standpoint that the person wouldn't be driving at a high rate of speed when it's not necessary. And think about it. What's one of the first things that happens when there's a high speed chase and an innocent civilian? Everybody starts saying, "Why didn't they break off the chase?" Mm-hmm. And it's about experience, and it's about training, and and that's really what my concern was. Is if you're running red lights and you're running stop signs, what happens when somebody doesn't see you coming? And you don't have that training, you don't have the experience on how to drive a car fast, and that's really what my concern.
By the way, I did just take the defensive driving course.
That
10% on my insurance, and very defensive out there, Scott. The streets of Oneida County are safer today.
Scott, by the way, you are authorized to pull him over and ticket him at any time.
I was just kind of hoping he didn't have to take it as a reason that he didn't
have to take it. It might have been an order. Here is Andrew.
So I want to get back to I want to just really get quickly back to the fact of the mayor being, or the public safety commissioner being at the crime scene. I know you didn't have the chance to really sit down and talk with him about it, but what justification did he give to you, or what reason did he have?
Why was he there?
That he felt he needed to be there?
He never gave me an explanation directly. He never spoke to me directly. He always had somebody else do the talking for him. And what I was told, that because he's a public safety commissioner, he has every right in the world to be there. Right. I disagree with that.
Final, completely unrelated, if you don't mind, quickly on the Caitlin Connolly murder trial ending in a hung jury. A lot of people, very interested in this trial. Looks like you guys are going to retry it.
Yes.
All right.
Yep. Probably. The judge did not set a date, but he gave us a time frame of end of September, October is what he's looking at, because he has trials already scheduled up till then.
And it looks like Assistant DA Calusa will be on the team for this time around.
Yeah, I added Mike Calusa to the team. Him and Lori Lisi have tried a couple other very high profile cases. They tried the murder of Tommy Lindsay, and they also tried the murder of Kurt Wyman together. So they have a lot of experience working together. They work well together.
Is this a case? Everybody talked about the OJ trial and how there's just so much information out there, and it just was confusing to the jury to wrap your head around it. Is this a case like that? Very technical.
I think so. I would agree with that analysis. There's sometimes the more evidence you have, or the more technical the evidence that you have, the more difficult it is. People always, the easy case is, I saw Jeff shoot Andrew.
Right.
And Andrew comes in and says, yes, he shot me, and it hurt.
But I deserved it.
Those are easy cases.
Yes.
But, when you get into really technical stuff, and especially with the older generations, they don't understand computers. They don't understand, memory, and you know, I mean, I can tell you right now, if I went to my mom right now and I said, do you realize a computer actually works basically off a binary system? Everything inside of it's working either as a 0 or a 1.
I'm already drifting, okay?
Right. She'd be like, what?
Yeah. Listen, we'll have to get you back in and talk more in depth on what you can talk about with this case, but we certainly appreciate the time to clarify this morning. And as always, thank you so much for coming on the air.
Thanks for having me.
All right. DA Scott McNamara. Got a break.